I have a new Honda GX240 with electric start and charging. I want to determine if it is possible to connect the ignition switch so that when it is turned to the on position 12 volts will flow to a timer that operates a condensate drain. When the switch and engine turned off, the power is off to the timer.
Hello, I don't know exactly what you want to power, but the stock switch is not wired for adding another circuit. You would have to change the ignition switch to one that has a second run position, or if you just need a power signal, you can tap in between the charge coil and rectifier. The rectifier contains a diode so no power goes from the battery when the engine is off. When off you would have no voltage. When running you would have 12 to 15 volts AC. I'm not exactly sure if you are just powering a timer or a timer plus what the timer is operating. If it's more than the timer, I would install another switch. It would need two separate run circuits, ignition, 12 volts power, and one momentary circuit for the electric starter. I can take a look at some of the switches I have to see if I can get you a part number if you decide to go that way. Doug,
I am just running a timer that causes a solenoid valve to open periodically for a specific period of time, then resets. About 500 milliamperes. If you refer to the schematic for the GX240 electric start, can you tell me which wire I should tie into? The other wire would go to ground. XXXXXXXXXX. Doug, I am just running a timer that causes a solenoid valve to open periodically for a specific period of time, then resets. About 500 milliamperes. If you refer to the schematic for the GX240 electric start, can you tell me which wire I should tie into? The other wire would go to ground. I see a gray to black wire between the rectifier and charging coil. I need 12 volts when the switch is on and no voltage when the switch is off. Could here be an overvoltage surge when the engine is cranking that could damage the timer? XXXXXXXXXX.
I'll post my wiring diagram to make sure we are looking at the same one. Okay, the wire from the charge coil, white, changes to gray and goes into the rectifier. This wire transmits AC voltage from the charge coil. There will be 0 volts when off, and it will be a few volts when cranking over, about 12 volts at idle and around 15 volts with the engine at full RPM. Most timers operate on a wide range of voltages, but check your timer to verify that. I also wouldn't hurt to install a fuse. It could be tapped into that line anywhere before the rectifier. Once the power goes into the rectifier, it is converted to DC and there is a diode that prevents power from flowing out of the rectifier back to the charge coil. That's why you can't install it after the rectifier. If your timer is very sensitive to voltage, then you would be best installing a 5-prong universal stator switch. I'd have to check over the wiring diagrams, but I think either the Honda tractor or John Deere tractor switch would work, and both are around $20. Your system does not have a regulator, so voltage is going to fluctuate a great deal. If you are running an expensive timer or electronics, then I would remove the stock rectifier and install a universal regulator/rectifier that would regulate the voltage better. Most digital hour meters will run perfectly fine in the location I mentioned, so if your timer may be similar to those, then you just need to splice it into the wire from the charging coil. If it comes with a spec sheet, that should tell you. If it doesn't have one, let me know what brand and model and I'll try and find out so we know. Doug,
your diagram is different than mine, but essentially the same. Mine is black wire to gray from the charging coil to the rectifier. I will check the specs on my timer and write again if you don't mind. However, you have given me some great answers. Thank you, Jim.
Sounds good. I'm on most days, so just get back to me with that info. Have a good night. Doug.
The charging coil produces AC current, right, but my timer is 12 VDC only, I believe. If that is the case, I would have to connect after the rectifier, not before. If it is possible.
Most of the hour meters will run on AC or DC. If your timer will only run on DC, then you will have to install a new switch with another circuit for it. You can't install your timer after the rectifier because that circuit is live all the time on your unit. I dug out some switches I'm going to test this morning. Doug.
Thanks, Doug. I guess the new switch would have 12 VSC jumped or brought to one side of the on position and then to the timer. So when the switch is in the on position, 12 VDC flows to the timer.
Exactly right. It looks like the switch from the older JD111 will work fine. They are about $20. I'm working up a wiring diagram for you to use, and I'll post the link where to buy the switch. Most lawn and garden shops carry that switch, so you might be able to pick up from a local source. Doug. Here is the switch from eBay. Any shop should carry this one because it fits just about everything. http://www.ebay.com/in/ignition switch for John Deere AM102551 Craftsman MTD Troy-Belt Murray Toro /110880361744. Here is what I get for installing it on your motor. Verify those connections with an ohm meter before running, but I'm showing that configuration will do exactly what you need it to do. If your timer shows it will run on AC/DC, then just hook it in as we first discussed. Otherwise, that switch should get you going with the least amount of time and money. Doug.
I think I have it now. Assuming the switch will fit on the Honda switch box. The timer is a Burkert W4XMA 12 to 24 VDC. 1.5 amp. I'm presently connected directly to the battery with a fuse on the hot leg. So if forget to remove the fuse, it keeps actuating the timer until the battery is kaput. Thanks for help. I will close out this question. Jim.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert, now visit JustAnswer.com/YTHI.